Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 The Masters, the 87th edition. It is the start of the major season, and I am super excited. I am going to give you a complete breakdown and preview of everything you need to know about the course and the field, get you some thoughts on what I'm thinking from a betting side, get your brain going on who you might want to play from a DFS side, do a quick recap of the Valero, a very quick recap, and oh yeah, and I've got a giveaway. So with that said, thank you for stopping by, especially if you're first timers. Check me out if you were just starting this whole DFS or betting on the Masters. I think you've landed in the right spot. And with that said, let's go talk a little golf. Okay, so real quick, especially if you're new, I do have a giveaway. And what am I doing? I'm giving away randomly 5 winners, $100 each. And all you need to simply do is click that like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber, because I need to know who do you think is going to win the Masters. So real simply, to put that back, randomly picking 5 winners are going to win $100 each. All you need to do is click that like button and subscribe. Tell me who you're going to win the Masters. After on Wednesday, I will get the results, and I will contact you through YouTube comments to get your PayPal email address to get that money over to you. Okay, real quick, so let's talk about the Valero. We're not going to spend long on this. I feel like my recaps have been a little too long as it is, but of course I had some really nice calls. I did have Corey Connors as one of my top plays in the 10,000 range. I also told you to don't play Davis Riley, and that came to fruition. I believe he WD'd round 2. We had a lot of restarts. It was really a hard tournament on so many fronts to get excited about, to actually watch. The ending was kind of interesting. Right? You had Patrick Rogers, who, I also tweeted out, like, if you guys have been with me through the whole West Coast swing, that I kept betting and waiting for Patrick Rogers to get that first win. I was totally off him for the Valero. And then, of course, he's leading going in by a couple strokes going into Sunday. But he does what Patrick Rogers does and started missing a ton of putts. The driver started going a little wayward. But Corey Connors does what Corey Connors does, just kept hitting fairways, greens, making some putts, not all of them. But, great for him. This is his second win on tour. Of course, he won in 2019 after the Monday qualifier. I'm sure you did not hear that about 1 billion times during the coverage. But I'm a huge Corey Connors fan. Where I, with probably a lot of people, where he really came on the scene was watching the first Valero back in 2019 where he won. And then on that note, I mean, a lot of you folks also know that watch quite a bit of golf, or, that in the Masters, this guy shows up. And what does he do? Again, he hits fairways about 280 to 300 off the tee. Crazy accurate. His irons can go in fuego, one of the better iron players, hence what he did at the Valero. We'll look at some stroke gain data real quick. But what's the most amazing part is that this guy, Corey Connors, is typically not very good around the greens and not very good as a putter. I do like and I mentioned this in the preview show for the Valero, that where I do like Corey is on Bermuda, where he's shown up and putted well at times, was on Bermuda. But these are some of the hardest greens, bent greens, to putt on. And the guy has shown up over and over. And you can look at like Will Zalatoris. You can look at Matsuyama, who won back in 2021. It's crazy. So this is just a little note on his finishes, what he's done. And then the only other guy in the field over the last 3 years to have top 10 finishes over and over is Cam Smith, right? And he had a really good chance to win, was my guy last year before he went to the LIV Tour. To win the Masters. So just a little side note. All right, the last thing we'll talk about for the Valero is the stroke gain data. And if you want to see what Corey did, again, the previous time when he won, he gained almost 12 strokes on approach. When you do that, you're not going to gain a lot with a putter, because it means you've probably got a lot of 5-foot putts that you're making for birdies. And the Sam Stevens, right? So I talked about him. Had a really good showing at Corrales, and it really, I mean, he's had some showings before that. I believe at Pebble Beach, he also had a pretty good outing, but really didn't come on my radar until Corrales. Played a little bit of him. You could see also went nuts with the irons. And the guy had 2 eagle tries, I believe, on the back 9, and he missed both of them, but did make birdies. And then at 18, if I remember correctly, I believe it was on his drive, he hooked it left, and then tried to reach it in 2, hooked that left. Missed his birdie putt, which I think was like a 4 or 5 footer. If he would have made that, there would have been a playoff and would have been even, a little more exciting. The guy that I was kind of hoping for was Sam Ryder. I bet him live around 30 to 1 when I kind of saw what he was doing on Saturday. That did not come out. I mean, Matt Kuchar over and over and over just, shows up at TPC San Antonio AT&T Oaks course. Really, I just call it the Oaks course. But again, proven, Benoit, been a great ball striker. Ches Reavie, wow. This guy has done absolutely nothing since the Barracuda back in the summer of 2022. He's missed, I think, like, I don't even know, 7-8 cuts. And then just was crazy. I was watching the in-tournament stroke gain information, and he was leading after day one from a ball striking standpoint. That's off the tee and approach. But typically, if you know Ches Reavie's game, he's really good with the irons, really good from like that 125. That was some key stroke gain areas that we were looking at for the tournament. But typically, he's an awful putter. And you could see that changed and gained 5 strokes with the putter. Hence, he shot, I believe, the low round on Sunday, 65. So if you did play Showdown on Sunday, if you had that guy, which I highly doubt, but if you did pretty well. And then just to round out, you had Lee Hodges, you had Andrew Novak, another Corn Ferry, both these guys, pretty recent Corn Ferry guys. He gained 7.7. Padre Harrington, great showing. Chris Kirk, another guy that I had live bet and felt pretty good that he'd have a shot to work up there, and came out with 3 birdies early and then just kind of fell apart on the back 9. Ricky Fowler, everybody was kind of hoping that Ricky would win to get in the Masters. Had a good outing. I think he shot 66 on Sunday. You can see the putter kind of let him down. So, just some note. And then Ben Martin, a guy that I talked about, who's just been playing really consistent golf. Now, again, if you've been playing DFS for a long time, Ben Martin typically in a tournament would be your 6,000, 6,100 guy, an afterthought. You wouldn't even think about clicking him. But man, this past, I don't know, half a year, this guy's been playing. Again, if he could have putted a little better, he would have had a chance to be right up there to win this thing. So just side note, some information for future tournaments. A few of these guys are in the Masters, but not a ton of them. Okay, so let's transition to why we are here. Let's talk about the Masters tournament. Let's start with the course breakdown. And of course, we have went over to Georgia. We are in Augusta, Georgia. And this, as I mentioned, is the 87th edition. The tournament has been played here over and over. It's the only major that just, every year gets played at the same course. And it's been going on since 1934. Your architects, if you are interested, would be McKenzie and Robert Jones. But to the real kind of facts and data, it is a par 72. It is probably the most watched and known course. So, I mean, I'm not going to school you on a lot of things, but they have added some yardage. The previous year was playing 7,510 yards, and now we've added 35 yards, and that happened on hole number 13, which used to be a very gettable, the easiest par 5 on the course, but they've added a little length to it. Fairways and rough are ryegrass and pretty easy rough. If you've watched this tournament before, we're going to get into the defense is, but it's, the rough is typically nothing. It's just a little less than 2 inches. And then of course you got these crazy fast, slopey bent grass greens, which we're going to talk a little bit about the weather that could affect the whole play of this, but side note, they are bent greens if you're interested. Player field's a little smaller than last year, right? You had Aaron Wise that WD'd due to getting some mental health things going, which is too bad because that guy was playing. I mean, he's always been an amazing ball striker, but the putter kind of heated up back, I'd say, like during the FedEx Cup event in 2022, and then the putter's kind of fallen back, and he's kind of fallen on some hard times if you look at his finishes. So no shocker, he's going to take a break. But the field is 88 players, and it is cut down to top 50 and ties will make the cut. And one thing that's unique about this tournament, at least, it's almost like the Brooks Koepka kind of theory is you can take about 30 players and eliminate them right off the bat, right? You've got some of the, we'll call them international players that get into this. You got all the folks that, like the Larry Mises and, Mike Weir and, Fred Couples that, have won the Masters. They want to come back and have the experience again, but they're not going to win this thing. Bernhard Langer maybe will get you a cut. That can happen. So, you can look at that if you want to get really unique. But other than that, I mean, and then we got a whole nother variable that is coming into play. Of course, we have all the live guys that we have very limited stroke gain data. So it's all different depending, like Amito Piera, that's a newer kind of transition. A lot of the guys have been over there now for almost a year. So that's a whole nother thing we're going to look into during these conversations to talk about the live guys. Another cut line, historical cut line, on average, somewhere between around 3 or 4, plus 3 or 4. But if you want to know like the highs and the lows over the last 5 or 6 years, +2 to +7. Your winning scores, of course, Scotty Scheffler winning last year, shooting 10 under, which if you remember on 18, I think he 3-whacked it from 2 feet. So it could have been, like 12 under, but that's neither here nor there. He had a big lead. I think Rory was 7 under, if I remember correctly. And then of course the previous year, probably a shocker, at least for me, Hideki Matsuyama winning at 10 under. Now, what does Hideki do very well? He's one of the best ball strikers on tour, and he's actually got a really good around the green game. Where he typically really struggles is with the putter. And so, on these greens, you really typically need very good putters. So he just kind of hit a hot putter, and we talked about this again with Will Z, not a good putter, at least inside 10 feet. And also, of course, Corey Connors, what he's done. Then you had Dustin Johnson win back in 2020, the COVID year, where the tournament was not in April, right? It got pushed out to, I guess it was a November timeframe. It was fall. And the course just did not play anything like what we're used to. It was not fast and firm. It was wet. This event is going to play the same way, but there's quite a bit of rain as we talk. There's a little bit of overcast and sprinkles going on while the guys are out there on Monday. But I'm going to show weather just so you can see what I'm talking about. And then, of course, another one that kind of, caught me a little bit off guard. I mean, you never count out Tiger, but, right, I mean, really coming off no form in 2019, shot 13 under. And you had, again, at that time, you had Finau in contention. You had, I believe, Xander. You had Koepka. You had Molinari, who blew up, hitting a tree and, going in the water. All those guys kind of fell apart. I believe that was on the par 3 with it, where he sucks back into the water. And then before that, you had Patrick Reed at 15 under. Of course, what does he do very well? He hits, around the green and putter. We know that in his days. But he also hits a draw. We'll talk a little more about that when we get in a little further down in the notes. You got pretty large slopey greens. That's almost 6,500 square feet. I actually typically don't put this in there, but acres of fairway, I'm throwing that in there because that is very high. And what does that mean? Very large fairways. So, the course defense of this, and you're probably going to hear this a few times, is it's not really about hitting fairways. And even if you get off, you can typically recover out of that pine straw. Yes, there's some trees, but they're pretty spaced out. So it's not so much, I mean, I don't think it's coming off to the tee. What you're going to notice and everything that I'm doing is we're working our way from the green back to the tee, from a stroke gain analysis, from everything that I'm looking at personally. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. You have 44 sand bunkers out here, very large sand bunkers, but a very nice white fine sand, easy, I think, to get out of. So I don't think that's a huge factor. You do have 6 water hazards. 5 holes water comes into play, and we're going to talk about a couple of the par 3s where it really typically shows up. And then, what we're used to is the stimp meter. These are 13 plus lightning fast. You got to think about, this is the only event on the PGA kind of schedule. Hence, it's not a PGA event, but of course, it's a major that doesn't provide green books. Now, yes, of course, we all know that the green books that were provided, before have been removed. But of course, you've got all the ones from the past. But the only way you would have any information on these greens are either you went to other folks and got their green books, or your caddy has it, or you played here a bunch. So this is definitely experience is something that comes into play. I talk about it below. The only first-time winners ever was Tiger Woods, which the greatest golfer ever lived, so no shocker there, when he just dominated back in 97 and just blew away the field. That was, for me, the real coming out party for Tiger Woods. You had Fuzzy Zeller and then Horton. I mean, no way again. That's it. Typically, you have to have knowledge, because these greens are so tricky that you need to play them quite a few times, and really you kind of break them into quadrants, where you need to land it, which way you can work the ball off these greens from your approach shots, your chips. So there's a lot that comes into course knowledge here. I already talked about the greens. Of course, every putt typically breaks towards Rays Creek. Then really the tournament on Sunday, you might think you know who's going to win, but until you get past Amen Corner and on the back 9 is really when things kind of, the leaderboard goes up and down usually. I think of Patrick Cantlay, the year that Tiger won, gained the lead, and I believe it was before he came into Amen Corner, and then literally just kind of fell apart, which, funny enough, is one of the guys that I'm actually interested in this week from a betting side. All right, some past notes. The layout tends to favor players who hit a draw or the lefties. So, right, I mean, you've got Phil Mickelson who's won here 3 times, a lefty. You also have Brian Harmon, who showed up, I believe, the year Hideki Matsuyama did pretty well. You also have Bubba Watson, who's won here twice. Also guys that are very creative and work the ball, like a Jordan Spieth, who's actually a past champion. You got to be creative here typically. And also, like I said, I like guys that can work the ball either way. And if I think of someone I've talked about before that is kind of, for me, a little bit like a Bubba Watson, would be Sahith Theegala. Now, he's a rookie to this event, first time. So I'm not thinking he's going to win it, but I am interested to see how he plays here, and also might be some ideas from like a top 10. I think he's 110 to 1 to win. But just a side note, you know, if you're looking for an interesting bet for a top 10, Sahith Theegala, I think makes some sense on a lot of fronts. Pretty good, you know, really good scrambler because he can get a little wayward because he does work the ball right to left, but he's very creative. And I think someone that you're probably not going to hear a lot of people talk about, I don't think, from a position of could be a top 10. So I mentioned scrambling is key. Will Z, you know, I put this in here because it's amazing to me that, you know, when Will Z shows up here. Now, this is prior Will Z having the back issues, right? I mean, after he won his first victory, which is kind of a very sad story, right? He gets his first victory after a lot of shots in playoffs and runner-ups, and that was in the first FedEx Cup event at TPC Southwind. And then he has to pull out of the BMW, so he's playing some of the best golf. And then literally he's off for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And I don't think he's right to this day. I mean, he literally had to kind of redo and rechange his swing. Think of a Jason Day who had to do the same thing, right? Your lower back, the disc compression, the way he was following through, which like a Joaquin Niemann, you know, like that's going to take a toll on you at some point. And so Will Z, I think, not only is the putter within side of 10 feet, maybe specifically 5 feet, an issue with the yips, but his swing, I don't think, is where it was. And it's sad. I hope he gets back. I'm a huge Will Z fan. But for all that I just mentioned, I will probably be staying away, even though year after year, he's shown that he can do very well here. I already talked about the experience and why that is very important, about the quadrants and where to hit the greens, knowing that whole thing. Just some other new notes. They did change number 7 green completely. So from what I understand, it's a whole new green complex. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of guys. I bet you that number 7 green during the practice rounds is going to be very busy trying to get all your notes and figuring out, you know, everything you used to know. And they like to do that, right? Augusta, because these guys come here year after year after year, they're always making tweaks and changes, some very subtle changes, some very strong. They're always adding some yardage. Hence number 13, as I mentioned, the shortest par 5 they've lengthened, I believe it was 35 yards. And then I just put in there to remind myself again about the Greens Books experience, that experience does come in, and we'll talk a little more in that range. All right. I think that's enough from a course breakdown. You probably just got oversaturated, but now you know pretty much everything that I know about Augusta. If you want just a quick overview, and I'm just going to pull out a couple things here. So this number 12 would have been the hole that actually I was talking about in 2019, where Brooks Koepka, just kind of really hard to see, but here's the green. And if you remember, I think there was a slight rain, but there's a wind that swirls here. And if you don't know that, you know, the way the wind typically goes, both those guys, Finau and Koepka, and all those guys kept landing short. I think even Cam Smith, if I remember right, last year, hit it here, sucked it back in the water. That is a very volatile hole. And then, of course, 16 is another one. Now, I don't think this is as volatile. It's really where the pin's put. Typically on Sunday, it's put right here by the trap. You can throw it up here, and it works right down. I mean, actually, it's one of the holes that you typically get to see almost a hole-in-one quite a few times. I think, but this backside is definitely the differentiator, and we'll go into that a little more. And then, of course, this is number 12 I'm talking about here. So if you don't understand, of course, that bridge, and guys, you know, if you hit it here, it's going to get sucked back in here, especially if they keep this tightly mown. And then here's the other hole, 16 I was talking about, that, you know, when the pin on Sunday is typically put by this trap, is where you'll see, you know, these guys know they can throw it up here, suck it back down. So again, if I know this knowledge, of course they know this knowledge, but of course, you know, again, it is all experience. And also, you know, as I look at this, the one thing that's very unique, and you're going to hear this quite a bit, that on TV, this course does not look as slopey and hill, but it's one of the tougher walks in golf, hence the whole Tiger Woods and his legs. And will Tiger probably make the cut? I would guess Tiger is going to make the cut, but will he probably kind of fade as the Saturday, Sunday comes around? That's what I'm expecting. Again, it's cooler, wetter conditions. It's going to be a rough walk, but we'll see. You know, never count Tiger out. All right, all I'm going to call out for the scorecard again is to kind of reinstate what I was just kind of saying, and that is, don't get too excited about your bets or your DFS lineups until Sunday after, you know, starting on number 10. And why is that? Is that you've got this tough kind of stretch right here, 10, 11, 12, especially 10 and 11, where a lot of things can change. And then you got a lot of scoring opportunities. You got these 2 par 5s. That's that number 5, 10 that guys would try to reach into. Well, you know, what some of the guys are saying now is that's a 3-shot hole. I don't know. I mean, maybe if it's wet, we'll see. But that's where a lot of the, you know, the changing can happen, is within that kind of, you know, 7-hole stretch. And that's really the only thing I'll call out on this whole card. Everything else is pretty standard typical. You know, you start out, it's not a very gentle handshake. It's one of the tougher holes on the course. So you go from one of the harder to one of the easier, this par 5, number 2. And yeah, I think that's it. And there is no scorecard that I can reference because that did not come. Again, this is not a PGA event. So quite a bit of the information we typically get, we don't get in the Masters. It's kind of its own little world and society if you've ever been to Augusta. Okay, so the custom stat model that I'm going, I've changed this quite a bit since last year, and I'm approaching it a little bit different. Not crazy, but a little bit different because, you know, the more and more that I do this, I always try to keep like rehoning and what I think is most. And as I've been talking through this, I think the most defense this course has without wind and weather is the greens. You know, the greens are the toughest. And so right out the bat, I'm going to be working my way from a stroke gain analysis and weighting from the greens back to the tee, which I mentioned earlier. So putting these inside 10 feet is crucial. If you look at what Tiger Woods' success here, what did he do very well? The guy never missed inside 10 feet. And then there's these lag putts 25, 30 feet out is also crucial. You're going to have quite a few. Now, if it is wet, I think this is going to be a little bit different. I think guys are going to be able to go after more pins and be more aggressive because the greens are going to hold. You're not going to have the greens as fast. So going to have to keep an eye on that. But if I went with what I typically see, if it's a firm, fast Augusta, this is what I'm looking at. The next thing is around a green. Again, because you're going to have a lot of these run off, or if your approach is not perfect, again, a lot of runoff on these greens, you're going to be really good around a green. And that shows over and over and over. When you look at the guys that have typically been very good that have won in the past. I mentioned Matsuyama. You might not think that, but he is very good around the green. Of course, Cam Smith and your past champion, Scotty Scheffler. Again, you might not look at him that way, but he's one of the better around the green players out there. Approach is always key, right? I mean, you can alleviate a lot of this if you're just sticking, each shot within 5 to 10 feet. And then good drive. So, I've always been around this. We've looked at driving distance with fairways. We've looked at off the tee. And I'm going with good drives because I can do more analysis. The one thing that has actually been tracked at Augusta from I don't want to call it stroke gain, but the old kind of stroke gain analysis is good drives. What does that mean? It's not taking so much distance. It says that you've hit the fairway or the first cut of rough and you have an opportunity to hit the green. And so it's kind of a unique thing, but I kind of like that one. It does a combination. And I'm not as worried about what these guys are all hitting it minimum 280, but there's also going to be times where they're hitting 3 woods, 5 woods, driving irons. We learned a couple of years ago when everybody was putting the bets on Bryson DeChambeau, when he gained all that length, it was over. He was the winner, and he didn't even make the cut, if I remember right. Now, yeah, he got off in the beaten paths and, struggled a bit. But long story short, you don't have to be a bomber. Now, it doesn't hurt. Again, I've always said length and accuracy is always a weapon. Hence, when DJ won, but of course, Rory, having his shots and everybody, also thinking, which I think, yeah, he could have a good shot in it. But again, he's really good with all these other things. Where you got to make your hay on this course is the par 5s. It's not really any different than, other tournaments, but it really shines up here that you've got to make your birdies on the par 5s. There's 4 of them. I've highlighted that what I'm going to be looking at specifically is there's 3 between 550 and 600. You still got to be a good ball striker, right? But I've just done it a little different. Typically, if it's a longer course that you could take advantage, like, I don't know, hypothetically, like a Kapalua, where they play the Tournament of Champions, that's a very long course. And man, it's a scoring Festivus. And so if you think of, I'm trying to think of another good example, a little Bay Hill, where they play API, you got to be a very good ball striker. You have a lot of long iron shots in. So that's still needed, but I'm just not putting it up as high as typically. Again, I'm not so much worried about, this is not a birdie fest typically. It is a bogey avoidance. Don't have the blow up holes, the double bogeys. And so I'm going to be putting that in. And then, like I mentioned, you're going to get once in a while off. I think scrambling does show up here. I think of Phil Mickelson. I think of Bubba. I think of Spieth. The guys that have won here, and you have to, be able to get out of trouble. Even Cam Smith had quite a bit of this. He didn't hit a lot of fairways last year when he had a really good chance to win. Sand saves, I don't think it's crucial, but, you are going to be in a bit of sand. And then the short game, really that's combining around the green and putting just, again, as a combination, putting more weight around that area. So that's going to be my custom stat model. All right, now to kind of look at and see, well, how do you backen that up? And so this is actually the year Hideki won. This is stroke gain data. And again, you're asking, well, they don't have shot link data at the Masters, but this is from Data Golf. I trust it somewhat. I mean, I don't know how they do their calculations, but somehow they are pulling stroke gain data. They do it for tournaments, even with shot link data is in. So I'm going to leverage just to kind of, represent a look. And so all this is showing here is what did Hideki do when he won back in 2021? Again, he actually gained with the putter, not a ton, but he gained, but really good around the green, good around approach. Didn't have to gain a ton off the tee, which again has to go back to the good drives, but approaching around the green was huge. Will Z, funny enough, gained quite a bit with the putter compared to the field. Was at least positive around the green, good on approach, and gained almost a stroke off the tee. So you kind of just work your way through. I mean, it's pretty rare that you're going to see guys it's not green here in the putting and around the green and approach. You can get away a bit, as I mentioned, off the tee. And of course, you can say, well, Jordan, but, Jordan probably chipped some in. Being Jordan, he was really good with the irons. You're going to be able to offset it. But again, where I lean is that I think you got to be good with the putter and around the green. And to kind of show that, what I did was like, where did these guys finish? So who led in 2021? Remember, I'm going to talk about 2022 in a moment, but let's look at 2021. Corey Connors actually led on approach out of everybody, again, using data golf, Siwoo Kim. And then I just kind of look at their positionings, right? So if you're like, well, how important is irons? Well, we had a T8, a T12. Hideki was fourth. You had Leishman at fifth, Spieth at third. So not a shocker, Finau, Simpson. Irons are very important. Okay, now let's go look around the green. Well, Matt Kuchar actually led, but he missed the cut. So you'd be like, well, but then you had a T3 with Spieth, a T10 with Finau, Schauffele, Matz was fifth. You had JT a couple cuts, an 18th, a fifth. So again, I mean, it shows up that guys that were good around the green got it done. And then off the tee, is it as important? Well, you had Rahm had a fifth, but he had Cameron Champ, who actually, funny enough, I forgot this, actually did pretty well in 2022. We'll see that. I think he ended up in a 10th. We had Victor, who led the top three. You had a T26, a T21, a miscut. Carlos Ortiz, so again, off the tee, not Fitzpatrick had a T34, a miscut. Cantlay led off the tee, did great, but did terrible with the irons and terrible with the putter, and he actually ended up miscutting. Will Z, of course, blended a lot of good things together, had a good chance to win it. Bubba DeChambeau, there's what I was talking about, where a T46, a T26, Xander, Spieth, Michael Thompson, which is funny, Blackbeard, and then Brooks Koepka missed the cut. That was the guys that led off the tee, and so what that tells me is, again, it's not that it's not important, it's just not, I think, the most important stroke gain stat. And then we look at the guys that gained with the putter, and you had Kevin Na, who didn't really do anything else from a stroke gain, but gained the most with the putter and ended up T12. He had Patrick Reed, T8, Poulter, Walker missed the cut, but JR, I think that's the year when JR came out and led after day one. Gary Woodland, which this is crazy stat, because typically, if you know Gary Woodland, he's typically a terrible putter, but a great ball striker. So that's almost like living in bizarro world right there. Jose Maria Thabel, there's Will Z, Webb, Kokrak, McIntyre, Stinson. So guys that got it done pretty heavily with just the putter. All right, so we will talk 2022, but I do want to do this. I think this is a very crucial thing, right? So the thing that we've never had in this world is two different golf tours. And a lot of the guys that have won this tournament, of course, went over to the LIV Tour, and even guys that are pretty good players. We'll talk about. It's impossible, really, to do stroke gain analysis for these guys because A, we don't have ShotLink data for the LIV Tour, and we also, these guys. It's been a while since they played an actual 4-round PGA event. It's been a while. And so what I'm going to do is actually just go jump over to the LIV, and let's just look at some of the recent finishes. It's not that scientific, but at least you get to go see on the LIV guys, the 48 players that have been playing there at least this year, what have they been doing? And I think it just is something to think about. It's for your knowledge. I've kind of done some of this analysis. I have my own thoughts. We'll talk a little bit about that more through the show. Where I'm going to be doing with these guys that are on the LIV Tour. All right, let's go do that real fast. Okay, so you can, of course, jump over. This is just looking at livegolf.com, looking at their standings. And because I was sitting there trying to figure out, I didn't notice on Data Golf that they had anything for LIV. Nowhere can I find stroke data. I looked at their website. They really have nothing that I could find that is talking about, even that I saw about fairways and greens and all that. Like you go on the players and it's just pretty much worthless information. But what we can look is they've had 3 events this year, and I was just kind of curious where these guys at least have been finishing, right? So you got to remember 48 guys they have that are playing. What's funny is this S. Kim, which Shiwan, I think is Kim, has actually ended dead last in every event, which if you guys remember, there was this whole thing of with LIV, like we're going to have the best players and there's relegation. Well, how is this guy not regulated? But you could also say that for Phil Mickelson. But anyways, so of course, Charles Howell won the first event. You had all the buzz, right? As Brooks Koepka is a two-time winner on the LIV Tour, and he just won there in Orlando, which, what I heard about that course, I did not watch any of the event, but a lot of people in the area were shocked that professional golfers were playing that venue for a tournament. And what I mean by that is there's a lot better places, tougher for PGA status. So how much can you take in that, Koepka won a LIV event? I don't think any. And then Danny Lee, right, won his first, I think it was like his second event on the LIV Tour. He had a 34th and it came out and won. And of course, on the PGA Tour, I can't remember the last event that Danny Lee was really relevant or won. I mean, funny enough, Danny Lee, I forgot what Masters it was at, actually ended up like top 10, I think, or top 20, like it was a couple of years ago. So that just popped in my brain as we were talking about this. Okay, why we're looking at this is if you want to know the guys who've been pretty consistent, let's just take a look at that. And they're around that are actually playing in the Masters. So these three guys, as far as I know, CH3, I don't think I saw him, but no Peter Uihlein, no Carlos Ortiz, so we don't have to worry about that. My buddy Sebastian Munoz, not too bad, an 8th, a 40th, a 2nd. He was actually leading that event. I just saw them tweet it out, I think going into Sunday, if I remember right. At least after Monday. I think he did my typical Monday qualifier opening round. I think he shot 8 or 9 under. The guy, Brendan Steele, right? We would have some stats. Like he just made the switch not too long ago, but a 5th, a 3rd, a 37. But I didn't recognize Brendan Steele here. But Matthew Wolff, amazing enough, is in the Masters. And if remember, like Matthew Wolff also had like the mental thing, took a big break, and his game just went sideways. He literally could not hit. He couldn't keep the ball within the course. Not even alone on the hole. But he's actually been playing pretty well again in the LIV Tour environment. 3-day tournaments, shotgun, blaring music, shorts, a bit of a slap and tickle. That's my opinion. If you're a LIV golf enthusiast and love it, great for you. It's not my thing. I actually have nothing against Matthew Wolff. I used to bet him and love playing him in Showdown. Of course, he won the 3M of, I don't know what that was, 2-3 years ago. I believe that's his only win. I might be wrong, but I believe that was his only win on the PGA Tour. And it was like, his second event? I think it came down to Colin Morikawa, maybe to Shambo. I think he chipped in for an eagle. Anyways, it was a long time ago. But if you're just curious, that's pretty solid for what I've been seeing with these guys. Brendan Grace, not terrible. Again, I don't know if he's in the field. I look, but I know Mito Piero's in the field. He's at a 16th, a 6, a 6. The other guy that I thought was kind of interesting, there's Paul Casey, if you're interested. Louis Oosthuizen, which, of course, he really showed form back in 2021. I think he even led the PGA in putting stats, but a 42nd, a 4th, and a 42nd. So you figure that out, what you like to do with that if you want to play some Louis. And then there was one other guy. Where did I see it? You look up. Oh, well, here's Koepka, or that's Chase Koepka. We'll go look at Koepka. There's my Michigan State, James Pyatt. I'm kind of shocked that he did that. Wiesberger. Oh, Phil Mickelson. Typically, he has been struggling to break 80, but I know he did break 80. I think he shot a 67 on, but still, you could see a 27th, a 32nd, a 41st. Not too good. Bubba Watson. Again, we're looking at some past champions. Again, a 40th, a 23rd, a 40th. Also, right, he was hurt for a while. I don't remember exactly. Charles Schwartzel, I mean, of course, a past champion way back, as I showed you. I think it was, 2011? I forgot the exact year. But why I bring it up is that last year, I believe he went into Sunday as the leader, and then, of course, fell apart during Sunday. But, again, not playing the greatest, again, at LIV, a 35th, a 46th, a 21. And I've always said he's, the Charles Schwartzels from a DFS side is going to be the guy that's going to break. If you've got that guy, you're going to be pretty good off. Westwood, not a whole lot. HV3, again, you got to remember, out of 48 guys, I'm looking for top 10s over and over. Thomas Peters hasn't been doing a lot. Abe Answer, which, we all were kind of thinking at times he would do well. DeChambeau, kind of a sporadic. Laurie Cantor, who I feel like just kind of went over there. Leishman, I think, is kind of interesting. He's got a pretty good record at this event, has that short game. The problem is I haven't got to put eyes on a lot of these guys in a long time either, but we'll talk a little more about him. I've got some more information. All right, I think that's enough. You can kind of go see what you can find. Gooch, I'd say Gooch out of the field is probably one of the more solid. Again, remember, out of the 48 guys, there's Cam Smith, right? I mean, a guy that had a good chance to win it last year, a 6, a 26, and a 29. That's kind of shocking for me. I'm not gonna lie. That I feel like Cam Smith is the elite within that crew. That's my own personal opinion. Of course, what he was doing before he went over there was just crushing it. I mean, the guy was just all cylinders afire, and that's what he's been able to muster. Kind of again confuses me. Kevin Na, I mentioned, has got a pretty good past history at the Masters. Okay, if you want to know a DJ, 37 to 13th and a 7th. Again, this is out the 3 live events this year. Reed has been trending in the right way. 38 and 18th and a 4th. And I think that's it. I think that's enough. I just wanted to kind of touch on that because I don't have a whole lot else to share with you guys with these guys. But, you know, I don't think you can go on. What were they doing on the PGA Tour? What's their... I think that's all kind of went out the window. Except for a couple of these guys. And then where's Joaquin Niemann? Because my own personal feeling is Joaquin is probably their second best talent that they have. And I just want to know what he's been up to. Okay, right here. So an 11th, a 37th, and a 33rd. Again, kind of feel like Joaquin's got more game than that. So I don't know. Kind of interesting. Oh, and there's Kokrak, which the one thing I'll say about Jason Kokrak, which he has had a couple, at least one good finish at the Masters. That guy on bent greens does do pretty well. So that's just a side note. All right, let's go back and keep moving along. Okay, so that's the live guys. We're going to talk about when we get into the models. You know, I do show them, but you got to put it with a grain of salt, and it was 2011 with Mr. Schwartzel won. So that said, I told you I created a custom stat model. Let's talk about what this thing is. You've got, I'm looking at 24 rounds of golf, the past 6 tournaments these guys played, and there is no live guys in this because we don't have recent form on any of those guys, so there's no reason to bring them in. So these are all the guys in the field. So, and you can see though, under recent form, the guys that we have are, you know, doing the best anyways, even if you would have pulled older stats. From a weighting perspective, I got 10% on putting, 5% on 25 feet outside, so making putts on those long lag putts. The crucial inside 10 feet, how these guys do. So really 20% are on putting right there. 10% around the green, 20% weighted on approach. That good drives, 15%. Scoring, hopefully gaining strokes on these par 5s, 550 to 600. Again, there's 3 of those. Ball striking at 10, bogey avoidance at 5, sand save, scrambling, and short game, which is stroke game, is shots gained for short game, just so you understand what's going on there. 5% on each. And if you click calculate, again, this is no filters. So I'm not looking at, you know, grass types or none of that. It's just last 6 tournaments these guys have played. No shocker. Of course, Jon Rahm, the top 3 guys are all multiple winners in 2023. Jon Rahm, Max Homa, Scotty Scheffler. Of course, Jason Day has not won yet. He's a big, you know, everybody's hyping and looking at Jason Day. Has always had a very good record here. He didn't get to play, I believe, last year. He actually already had a presser and, you know, it was kind of interesting to listen to his kind of thoughts on everything. What he did mention, if you didn't get to see it, and if you don't get to see it, he said where he's at in his game is, yeah, he's excited about where he's at, but the problem is that he has got multiple swing thoughts every time he's hitting a shot, which if you know the game of golf, when you're at this level, it is point, click, shoot. It is not, okay, I need to, you know, aim the gun, put my chin on it, and, oh yeah, I got to pull the trigger. It's, you know, it's where am I landing the ball? How am I working the ball? How am I flighting the ball? And so even though, with that said, the guy has been playing amazing, you can see out of all this, out of the last 6 tournaments, the putter outside of 25 feet hasn't been good. But other than that, out of 88 guys, he's top 10 in almost all the categories. So I think we're all kind of excited to see what Jason Day can do here. Of course, Xander typically does very well here, but he's also been playing good golf. Had a really pretty good showing at the WGC. What made it out of his pool play, if I remember correctly, I mean, he came out the first day just firing, and I'm trying to think who got knocked out by after that. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. You got Tony Finau, which, you know, again, also had multiple wins in the, we'll call it the fall late season of 2023, 2022. Sungjae Im also had a good showing here in 2020, again, with an asterisk. That was the fall Masters. Chris Kirk got the win at the Honda. You got Matt Kuchar's been playing pretty good golf. Now, he did miss a cut last year, as you saw, but his game kind of fits here, and he's actually leading the PGA Tour, and I think around the green or scrambling. It's one of the two. Justin Rose, I'm actually pretty interested in, funny enough, which I'm not a huge Justin Rose guy, but I don't know. I get those senses that tell me that Justin Rose, of what I've been watching, the putter's been really hot. He's really good around the greens, and I feel like he's got his tee to green game in better shape than it has been in a long time. So excited to see that. Justin Thomas, funny enough, I'm not excited about. Now, he does a lot of things that we like, but you can see what's really making me nervous is what that putter's been doing. But everything else makes sense. Also, the tee ball can get a little wayward, but I'm not super concerned about that. I'm going to always tell you guys when you listen to me, who's the guy that the first guy I thought about that I was actually wanted to bet first, and what came to me and under thoughts was Patrick Cantlay. On a lot of different reasons. The first thing is the guy on bent greens just excels like I've never seen. Of course, I mentioned the malt. He had a good chance to win here the year Tiger did. He's also had a lot of success at the BMW, which is always bent. And we're going to talk about it from a comp course where they played last year at Wilmington. I think it's a great fit. And he's also done well at Murfield, which Jack's place is the closest course we have from a comp course to Augusta. I mean, I've always said Jack wanted to go build Augusta in Ohio. And so if you're looking for the best comp course, I personally feel is Murfield Village. Of course, the greens, the way the course kind of plays, the distance, all of it, it's the best comp course we have. And he's just done very well there. Of course, Rahm should have won the one that Cantlay did win, but that's neither here or there. Jordan Spieth, of course, has done amazing here, and for all the reasons we talk about. Colin Morikawa, and then Terrell Hatton, of course, Morikawa, like Rory, had that really, really nice Sunday last year that vaulted him up. I think he ended up like fourth, if I remember correct. And then Terrell Hatton, told you guys that I was not going to be using him a whole lot. I wasn't betting him at the Valero, and I don't even think it was the wrist or the hand, whatever's going on. From what I heard, I think that's all over. I think he was getting a kind of a tingling there, but what I heard was that it was fine. Just yeah, it wasn't his moment, and we'll have to see what we think about for him at the Masters. Okay, so you guys know I always look at recent form. Then the next thing I look at is the historical data. Who does the best at Augusta? Now the problem is, as I mentioned earlier, we don't get shot link data. We can look at like fairways and greens and reg and stuff like that. But kind of what I did, there's a couple things that we can look at. The first is you just look at the 5 tournaments from a finishing standpoint and total stroke gain data. We can look at that. And of course, Jon Rahm over the past 5 years has been elite. Last year was a little bit of a down, but if you remember right, I think the putter, he was kind of struggling. DJ would be next. Of course, missed the cut in 2021. This should technically say 2020. I don't know why in Fantasy National it's not working, but it comes in as 2021. But it was 2020, the fall, November. And Cam Smith, who's I mentioned last 3 times going to at this place, is at a top 10. Had a T5 back in 2018. JT kind of up and down. And when I say up and down, I'm saying like a T8, T21, a 4th, a T12, but pretty solid. Again, does all the things. I mentioned just the putter is what's got me a bit off him. Of course, Rory missed a cut last 2021, but I had really kind of moved up on Sunday to get that second. He wasn't really in contention on Sunday. Also, he chipped in right for, I don't know if that was for birdie or eagle on 18. I think that was for birdie. Patrick Reed, of course, winner in 2018, had a couple good showings in the fall and in the 2021. Not the best showing last year. Of course, he was struggling a bit. Also made some changes with equipment, and then, of course, with the LIV. Hideki, nice showing, which is, pretty shocking. Like I said, I told you that you don't think about from a putting standpoint, but this was I really kind of felt like that 2020 season, you almost had to chuck out the window from a stroking analysis and really kind of focus, more. You could look at the 2022, 2021, and this 2018. Webb Simpson has had a round here or there, but again, his game has been kind of broken. Of course, Paul Tesori, his caddy, has moved on and went to Cam Young. That was because Webb's not going to play as much, as and also wanted Paul Tesori to to be able to go help Cam Young. They both, of course, went to Wake Forest. There's a lot more on that, but in short, not a big deal. I'm not saying that Webb couldn't, at least make the cut here, but I still have not seen enough out of Webb Simpson to jump on that train again. Mark Leishman, has kind of had ups and downs. There was a point, it was a couple of years ago where Mark Leishman was a disaster, and I feel like his game came back towards before he made the jump. But that's going to be a tricky one. Again, I haven't actually watched Mark Leishman play in probably a year, it feels like. Tony Finau's been playing amazing. You got Scotty, of course, with the win in 18th and 19th. So one of the better, I'd say records here. Okay, I apologize. When I came to Ricky Fowler here, I was like, wait a minute, he's not in this tournament, and he is not in the tournament. I think what happened was because I'm looking at the betting odds that the sports books put him in with, I guess, the hopes and dreams that he was going to make it. But long story short, Ricky Fowler is not in the tournament. And then you got Jordan Spieth, Connor, Zalatoris, Schauffele, Louis, and now both LIV guys down here if you want to see how they've done. But that's your, I think about top 18, 19 guys with the past 5 years experience at Augusta. All right, so I did mention I was going to show you, again, this is Data Golf, stroke gain data. You can go there. You should be able to do some of your own diving into some stuff. But again, like I said, I trust it, but I don't think it's as accurate, of course, when there's actual shot link data being provided. But of course, if you want to look at what Scotty Scheffler did last year to win, again, gain almost a stroke with a putter, gain a stroke and a half around the green approach, and then again, 0.75 off the tee. And so again, to kind of reemphasize, I really do believe that the putting around the green and approach is the key things. Again, you can see the guys here. I mean, you got Shane Lowry, gained over a stroke, Rory. But yeah, nothing crazy. It's more done on approach around the green and putting. And I'll put this up for a second because I'm not going to go through all of this. But again, it's kind of where I came to my analysis. Danny Willett putted, crazy last year. At least from what we could see here, gained the most with the putter. Didn't really do it a whole lot any other area. So, but yeah, give you a quick look, and then I'm going to move on. And then the other note that I'll put just from a past history kind of perspective, if you're betting this, just so you know, nobody within the last almost 9 years, so it is 9 years, has ever won this tournament when they were ranked outside the top 25 within the world. Now, got a different variable, the LIV guys, right? Because they've been falling down the world rankings because they're not getting world ranking points. As you see here, the lowest were Patrick Reed was number 24 back in 2018, and Hideki, when he won, was world ranked number 25. All the rest of the guys, 1st, 12th, 11th, 4th, 12th. So what history is telling you, and kind of back to the Brooks Koepka theory, is that from a winning perspective, the long shot is not typically going to happen here. So that's all that would really emphasize. All right, so we were talking about how putting is very crucial. So what I wanted to pull up for you guys is who's the best bent putters that are in this tournament. I did leave the LIV guys here because I kind of feel like putting is something that transfers. I mean, I don't think they've all of a sudden become terrible putters. I think the swings could maybe change if you're not doing as much practice and playing as much in competitive rounds, but the putter, I don't know. I left them here for you guys, just the short end of it. So what are we looking at here? We're looking actually at the past 9 tournaments or 36 rounds these guys played. And again, remembering that this is PGA, tournaments. So Ian Poulter, it's been a while, Kokrak, and Cam Smith. I mean, we're talking probably about almost a year ago. I mean, Cam Smith won the Open, and that was the last time he actually played, we'll call it within the PGA or the major confines that we would have had stroke data. And so with that said, if you want to know the number one putter, hence Patrick Cantlay, I told you guys, and this is before I did any analysis, my first bet, and only bet, to be honest, right at this moment, is Patrick Cantlay at, the putter. And so, again, against that stroke model, if you're curious, you got Patrick Cantlay, Seabez, you got Ian Poulter, Alex Noren, Kokrak, Homa, Hughes. That's kind of interesting with Homa being up there on bent greens. Hughes, McIlroy, Burns, Lucas Herbert. It's actually Herbert, but I like to say Herbert. Harris English, Rose, Finau, Zach Johnson, and Cam Smith. Again, this is purely looking at bent greens over the last 9 tournaments or 36 rounds with the putter, if you're curious on that. All right, so another thing I want to do is I mentioned how important short game. So the short game masters around the green. Again, looking at the same sample size of data. That's, again, 9 tournaments, 36 rounds. And what I pulled in here was, this is like a little different mini model. I put 25% around the green, 25% on putting, and then those 2 outside of 25 feet, inside 5 to 10, 3 putt avoidance, and then short game, which short game I think falls within like 30 yards of the green. So it's kind of chipping and putting and out of the sand. It's like all of it combined. That is the weighting. And if you're curious, over the last 9 tournaments, 36 rounds, funny enough, Tommy Fleetwood is your number 1 guy, which I think is kind of interesting because I think when we get into the weather, we got to look at some of the mutters who are guys that have done well and wind and rain. I think could maybe be relevant, to be honest. Next guy would be John Rahm. You got Homa, Day, Chris Kirk, Fitzy, Danny Willett, Harris English, Burns, Finau, Xander, Alex Noren, Matsuyama, Taylor Moore, your past winner of, why am I blanking on the tournament now? Of the Valspar. Sorry, that took me a moment. And Mackenzie Hughes also won the RSM back, like, what was that, the last tournament of the 2022 season, if I remember correctly. With all that said, that gives you the around the green. And I've always kind of said Mac Hughes is kind of interesting. I think I've been kind of waiting for him to have a good Masters. He was my long shot bet last year because I've always said for me, he reminds me a lot of Cam Smith. Just maybe not as good, but has a lot of the same similarities. So the Canadian Cam Smith, if you like to say, instead of the... All right, I talked a little bit about the comp courses at Oshocker. Now, I'm not pulling in Augusta data because I don't get Augusta data, but I have Murfield Village, the Memorial Tournament. We got Quail Hollow. Now, on a side note, that's Bermuda greens, but the way that course plays is very slopey. It's got the trees. It's got a lot of slopey greens. I think there's a lot there. Even East Lake for the Tour Champion, I think Tour Championship is very similar to Augusta. But again, that's Bermuda greens. And then the BMW Championship specifically last year, I'm just pulling in where they were at Wilmington Country Club. It's got the bent. It's a par 71, but very similar in yardage, very similar the way that course played. I think is the same as Augusta. You take all that in and you just look at, I wanted to look at recents. I just took the past 12 rounds against these courses just to keep it as fresh as possible. And with that said, funny enough, Patrick Cantlay came up number 1. Tiger Woods, that's a hard one, right? That's old data, so I would scratch that out. But you got Lowry, then Aaron Wise, funny, comes up there, but he's not in the tournament. He pulled out. But Seabez, Sergio Garcia, I'd scratch that. Older data, Joaquin, you can do what you want with that. Homa M, Horschel, Kevin Na, again, I'd kind of scratch that. But Rory, Paul Casey, again, a LIV. Like I said, this is going to be older data. Mitchell, Daniel Berger, as far as I know, is not going to start his 2023 season at Augusta. I would be blown away. Now, I told you he was on Gary in the Sleeves. I don't know. It's been a couple weeks now where he said he was feeling good, going to be coming back shortly, but has not announced when that's going to be. So as far as I know, Daniel Berger should not be in this tournament. Of course, Abe Answer, again, a little older data. Xander, Spieth, Garrett Hago, and Zach Johnson. Again, this is a very specific thing, right? We're looking at the Memorial. Did Horschel come up on here? He should. Yeah, right here, Billy Horschel. It took me a moment. Of course, he won last year Memorial, which was a bit of a shocker. I don't think any of us were looking for that, even myself. So, anyways, I was just curious if he was on there. Your past winner of the Memorial. Of course, I mentioned Cantlay before that. Rahm the year before, I believe. He could have went back to back. Okay, let's real quick talk about weather now. This is Monday, very early, but we do have an outlook. I mentioned it's a little overcasty, kind of cloudy, rainy there, a little bit of dusting of rain or a sprinkle. But what is showing right now is Thursday, we're going to get rain in the afternoon. The winds, I don't think are anything crazy. They say it could gust up to around 14. But what was shocking me, or not shocking me, what was interesting was how much rain it looks like they're going to get Friday and Saturday. And then again, if you look at the winds, could pick up into the 20s, blowing on average somewhere around 13 to 10. So it's going to be right now with what we're seeing. And again, like I said, if you're putting in bets, if you are thinking of, hey, if this is the weather, maybe I can get on some early bets so they don't change, because, smart bettors are going to be like, hey, okay, this is going to change my perspective. And if I can get some of the guys that are 50 and up, 50 to 1 and up, then I might do it. So that said, let's talk about the betting. Now, I already mentioned the only bet that I actually have in, I'm always very transparent with you guys, is Patrick Cantlay. And me personally, Augusta for me is not a huge betting time. And the reason why, as I already mentioned, the odds are that it's going to be a 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20, whatever. That's going to win this thing. It's not going to probably be a crazy long shot. Now, there's long shots that have won, but with the way the field looks and everything, I'm guessing that it's going to stick. As I mentioned, a top 25 player or better is going to win this thing. With that said, that fits Patrick Cantlay, and I mentioned all the reasons why I like Patrick Cantlay. The other guys that I'm interested in, and we'll walk through this, of course, Jason Day, everybody's interested in. Great track record here. Been playing amazing golf. 22 to 1. I'm waiting and hoping that some of these are going to adjust, but I don't think it's going to get any better than a 22 to 1. Maybe you can find them 25 to 1. This is all looking at DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way. Of course, Xander, interested in, always shows up here. Also, I feel like his form's gotten a little better after he left the West Coast swing, which is funny. Of course, he's California, should be good on POA, but didn't have the greatest West Coast swing. Kuchar would be more like a top 10. I liked what I saw at the Valero, what he's been doing around the greens. Of course, he's a good putter. He hits a ton of fairways. Also been pretty good with the irons, at least at the Valero. Out of this field, ranked 30th. So 130, so I don't know what he is top 10. I didn't look, but I'm guessing you could probably get, I don't know, 15 to 1, maybe 20 to 1. I haven't actually looked, but that's what I would be doing with Kuchar, not to win. JR, that would be a longer shot that I am kind of interested at 55 to 1. I probably would put a few bucks on JR to outright. Also, I'll look at a top 5, top 10 to see what that falls. Jordan, I'm back and forth on right now. 16 to 1, not as excited, but Jordan's been playing amazing golf. The putter still, he kind of cost himself. And I'm going to blank the last tournament that he had an opportunity to win, and they just couldn't make a bunch of 3-footers. I can't remember. Like I said, all these tournaments are running in my brain, but it doesn't matter. He has shown me some really good golf, and his ball strike has been great. Honestly, is the consistency with the putter. Tommy Fleetwood, like I said, back again to like thinking about guys that I think could do well in the conditions that I've seen. Has also had a bunch of top 20s here, top 15s. This is kind of that weather and this kind of where this game ends. He could have a shot. Now, he's never won on American soil. It would be kind of an interesting 50 to 1 I might be interested in. Fitzpatrick, again, has not been playing good golf. The neck issue seems like it's still kind of there. Again, if you were thinking from a mutter perspective that it should be a good fit. Also has played here quite a few times. They had a couple good finishes. Of course, Cam Smith, this is a tricky one, right? I mean, you guys know I'm a huge Cam Smith fan. It kind of broke me when he went to LIV, not going to lie. But yeah, 22 to 1 without what I just showed you, what he's been doing on there. I got to think about that. And I want to see where the market goes. Corey Connors, again, for a top 10, it should be no shocker. Of course, Shane Lowry, I showed you, had a nice, third here last year. Again, from a mutter perspective, I like that 60 to 1. And also we'll look at the top 10. Harris English, this is purely, I've seen some form, of course. Harris's game hasn't been the greatest after the hip, surgery, whatever they had done, but he's been showing up over and over. I think he had a top 5, and then I think he missed a cut. So it's been kind of back and forth. But the guy that I know, I guess I always talk about from a ball striking and the putter and around the green, he's just got a really nice, solid game. And for 250 to 1, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on that. Again, it might be a top 10 play, but that would probably be the long shot that I'm thinking of. And then Leishman, I'm interested in. I also mentioned Hughes. Mackenzie Hughes is not on here, but I'm going to look at him again. He's, showed one recently. Also, I guess kind of a Cam Smith light, again, from a top 10 side. And then Leishman, I'm just interested in, but I haven't got to watch a whole lot. But I'm thinking, again, maybe a top 10 is where I'm at. And that's right now where I'm looking. Like I said, I haven't done a ton of diving into the betting side as much, but these are the guys that I'm going to kind of do a little more analysis and thought process on, and just want to kind of share those with you. Also with the weather, if you, like I said, the only thing that you might want to do is if you're interested in one of these guys that like a Lowry, a Fleetwood, you might want to get a bet in earlier because of the weather, money's, the betting might start hitting them a little more and their odds start to drop a little. That's really all I'm telling you on this. Again, for me, I'll probably do more DFS, which is rare, than my betting side, but that's kind of what I usually do for the Masters, because as you guys know, I'm not a big fan of, betting 7 to 1 in a golf tournament. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the field really kind of narrows about 30 guys that really even have a legitimate shot of winning this thing. And we'll get into more of that tomorrow when I do my picks. All right, with that said, I even kept DJ on here, even though I went to LIV. I've always liked this where, of course, Augusta had the rainbow in the back. That I did not make that. It actually happened. But hey, I hope that was very informational for you, gave you some thoughts, get you start thinking. I hope you know a lot more, especially if you're new to the DFS side or the betting side for golf. But if you do me the honor, click that like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber, because if you want to get in the $100 E5-way entry or 5 entries for $100, I just need you to tell me who you think is going to win the Masters in the YouTube comments below. And if you also want to follow me on Twitter, I'm always keeping up, kind of tweeting out things, anything with withdrawals or injuries or anything I see that you guys should know. It will be tweeted out as soon as I have it. All right, with that said, tomorrow I will come out with my pick show. I greatly appreciate you guys spending some time with me, and I'm excited, as I'm sure we all are, to get ready. I mean, spring's officially here in my mind. Of course, you had baseball start, but for the golf fan, Spring is officially here, especially if you live in the Midwest like myself, and we're in the major season. So now it's the most exciting time, I think, from a golf perspective. One of my, of course, favorite tournaments is probably yours too. All right, guys, all the best. I will talk to you tomorrow.